latest there. Over to you, Amy.
Hi, Maria. Well, it's White House National Security Advisor Tom Donilon today in a speech in New York doing a rare thing, calling out China for cyber hacking. The White House National Security Advisor saying that businesses are complaining about Chinese cyber hacking at an unprecedented scale. Take a look at some of what Donilon had to say today. He said, from the president on down, this has become a key point of concern and discussion with China at all levels of our governments, and it will continue to be. The United States will do all it must to protect our national networks, critical infrastructure, and our valuable public and private sector property. Now, Maria, the White House said today that we can expect to hear from the president soon on cyber hacking, and also unveiled just last month as a new effort to have U.S. companies cooperate with U.S. intelligence agencies to actually get some classified information to U.S. telecom firms. The effort there designed to slow down or stop some of these hacking attacks before they even get to participating American companies who are part of what they're calling the critical infrastructure of the United States. So a lot moving here on this front on cybersecurity, Maria.
All right, Amy, thanks so much.
All right, reaction now to the strong words from the White House directed at China. We got Michael Chertoff with us today.
Yes, we do. He is chairman of the Chertoff Group Global Security Advisory Firm and the former secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Sir, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great.
So what do you make of the White House's comments and the approach thus far to increasing cyber attacks from China?
Well, I think it's overdue to have some strong public statements from our political leaders about exactly what's been going on, which is a massive transfer of our intellectual assets from the United States overseas to places like China. There was a report just in the last few weeks from a private company called Mandiant that specifically laid responsibility for one set of attacks to a People's Liberation Army-sponsored organization. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm going to ask a naive-sounding question, but why are they doing this? What are they after? Aren't we partners in trade? I mean, do they not trust us? What do they want to know that we haven't already told them?
Well, look at it this way. If you invest millions and billions of dollars in research, you test, you see what doesn't work, and at the end you produce a product, and if someone steals that and they haven't made that investment, they have the ability to underprice you, get to the market at the same time you do, and you wind up at a competitive disadvantage. If you're worried about outsourcing jobs, the biggest job outsourcing machine in the world is one that steals intellectual property on a systematic basis.
But why does there seem to be sort of no end in this? Do you think that we have an ability to actually stop these attacks? How come it's so difficult for corporate systems to actually rein this in?
First of all, it's because there are a lot of different ways attacks get carried out. Some people think it's just a matter of building a big wall around your network, but unfortunately it's not as simple as that. Some of it is better sharing of information. The government has information, the private sector has information, but we're stovepiped. We haven't shared it the way we should. And part of it is that there's a little bit of reluctance to challenge China because many of our companies view China as a market, and so there's a hesitancy about getting very aggressive with them. But it is costing us billions of dollars in intellectual assets.
There is a feeling that it will be Chinese executives, if they keep getting an earful from U.S. corporations about this, that it'll be the Chinese executives that go to the government and say this has got to stop at some point. That sounds naive to me, but what do you think?
I actually think
is that the beginning of the solution here?
I think that's actually going to be part of the solution. You know, I've been at a number of public events recently where people, including myself, have been very outspoken to audiences that include Chinese investors and businessmen about what is going on with intellectual property theft. And I think what may happen is these business people will go back home to China and they'll start to tell their government, look, we are going to be pushed out of global markets. We are going to be global pariahs if we don't agree to rein in what's been going on. So I'm hoping some business pressure may be part of the solution here.
And what companies do you think are doing a good job at this in terms of being on the front line of actually, if not completely stopping it, which I recognize is probably impossible, but at least having the tools to put a dent in this?
You know, Maria, you're right. You can't completely stop. You can't completely stop it, but you can reduce the risk. You know, the energy sector, the electric sector, we've done a lot of work with them. They're doing quite a bit to protect themselves. The financial sector has long been pretty sophisticated about these things. There are other sectors that I think pay a lot of attention. But what you worry about are some of the smaller organizations, the smaller companies that may not have the assets or may not have the interest in investing in the necessary protection. And in an interdependent world, if one part of critical infrastructure goes down, it affects everybody.
What do you think is behind this Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs comment calling for a set of rules for cyber attacks among countries? I mean, that's the kettle calling the pot black if I ever heard it.
Well, I think a lot of it is an effort to kind of misdirect and suggest, oh, all we want to do is get a set of rules and we'll play by the rules. The problem has always been attribution. How do you prove that the particular attack comes from a particular source? What was useful about this report by this group Mandiant and some other reports in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal is that for the first time we're beginning to lay the responsibility at the door of Chinese actors. And it's not only China, by the way, other countries engage in this too. And that's the beginning of accountability, when you clearly call out the people who are committing the wrongful acts.
All right, we will leave it there. Good
Mr.
having you on the
Secretary,
program.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to be on.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.